We're going to Mars.
We have Nancy Pérez here with us. And what's very exciting to me about this is that we've been interviewing people that have moved here. This is somebody that actually moved away from here because of space. She actually works with NASA now, and she's local. And this one we're going to concentrate a little bit because Elon just spoke and did his second Starship announcement. I don't know much technically, but I think it's very interesting what's going on. So having her here right now at this time, I think it's very interesting. So we're going to welcome you, Nancy. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine. Thanks for inviting me.
So Nancy, you have been in LA, is that correct?
Yes, for the past 7 years.
Okay, and you're working for NASA.
Yes.
For
J.P.L, Jet Propulsion Lab.
Jet Propulsion Lab. Okay. We're not going to dive too much into that today because I think that's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. And more than anything, I want to talk technically later with you on what's going on here. But today I wanted to concentrate on what just happened. Okay. One, because it's very interesting for our community. I know you're also very tied to our community. Your parents live here. Your family lives here. And he spoke briefly about the future of what's going to happen here, right? Apart from what the noise is that he's coming to Charro Days, mm-hmm. that everybody's excited about. But there's a lot of chatter. And this is what I wanted to tell you, that locally, I follow like as much as I can what people are talking about, right? And so there's positive forces and negative forces, or positive voices and negative voices about what's going on. So if I understand this correctly, and I wanted to talk to you because technically you can figure this out more than me, is he basically said, we're going to launch from Florida, but I didn't understand if we're an R&D facility, as he said, does that mean that the test launches that were happening here would still continue?
I believe so. Again, this is my opinion. Yeah. I did listen to his presentation, and I know we want to focus on building more here and testing. However, he did mention that in Florida, it is going to become saturated because there's so many launches, and it's not just SpaceX. So I'm not sure what the final decision is, if they're going to launch from here or not. But in my opinion, I think they should. But I didn't hear if he confirmed that we're not going to launch from here or not.
I didn't either, but people are talking about it that way. So there's certain interpretations that's exactly like the people that called me yesterday. That's happened Thursday. Yesterday was Friday. Were like, hey, he just said we're launching from here, and I said I didn't hear that. I heard. Yes, I heard we're not maybe launching to the moon from here, or maybe launching to Mars from here. That the future of that is in Florida, maybe. But R&D and testing would be here. And that's kind of what happened, right? When they tested mm-hmm. these rockets and stuff, and now they have the super heavy. What I don't get is, would we have an orbital test here? And I think the FAA is looking into this, right?
Yes. I do think that we're going to have the testing orbital from here. And again, these things can change. We can say something now, working with the FAA or working with government regulations. Again, there might be something in Florida already established that makes it easier that we don't have here. However, what I do know is that here it's not a government facility.
Correct.
So we have more like
leeway.
Yeah, freedom to do stuff. And that is why he selected Brownsville instead of going to other places to create the Starship.
Which is what I thought, right? It seems like he picked this place on purpose because it had a lot of the elements that you have in Florida, mm-hmm. but not as many restrictions, right? Obviously, as things have evolved and have changed according to what they talked about, the agreements they had with the state and what they were going to do here and what they're doing and all of that, like they were supposed to work on the Falcon instead of the Starship, and these things have evolved. But to me, it seems like they are still making or advancing this as a testing facility. And what I mean by testing facility is the launches. And why I keep bringing that up is because I think that's an essential part to attract people to our area, right? Not even looking at as a technical part, right. but it's a tourism attraction and a half, So a lot of people took it as he said he's leaving in 5 years. That's how a lot of people interpret it, right? And there's actually voices that are very loud in our town talking about that. So I didn't get that.
I didn't either. I don't think he would do that, leaving in 5 years. He has spent so much money here, and I don't see why he would leave in 5 years.
Yeah, that's what I understood too. And as he started talking about, he deviated very well, though. He's answered like very specifically and then shifted to these rigs that they're going to use in the ocean and how that's going to be really the future of these launches. And that's the other thing. This is what you can help me with too, technically. So, and I've had this conversation with a couple people, but it seems to be that if you add the Super Heavy to the Starship and you launch it from Boca Chica, it's going to be really, really, really loud. Okay. He mentioned it, right? He said the reason for the rigs is that if you have anywhere within a 20-mile radius, right, it's going to be really loud. So I would assume that South Padre Islands were within 20 miles. Right. We're within 20 miles. What 20 miles probably takes you to Los Fresnos or something. I don't know. But so you can still launch even if you have that noise level?
So in my previous experience, I also worked for the Air Force.
Okay.
Sorry, my hands.
No, you're good.
Working at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and I experienced so many launches, big rockets, Delta Heavy. Those, they can shake the ground, the windows. It's loud, and they're in the ocean. So I don't know how loud this can be, but it's probably a big impact.
Yeah, no.
So windows, everything. So yeah, that's probably why he wants to put it away in the ocean and launch from there.
Okay, but if we do the orbital launch, it's going to be from the launch pad. It's going to I would think, I don't know, right? Because the orbital launch would happen soon.
Okay.
Soon months, not like soon in a couple weeks or anything.
Yeah, I was reading May, but I don't know.
Yes, but let's say this year or beginning of next year, right? To say something that he does an orbital launch. There's no rig by that time, right? So I would assume if it's here, it's at the launch pad, and you're gonna rattle the island, right? So that's what's like, okay, the minute, and this is what it's been going through my mind, the minute that you start rattling people's windows, and now that you've told me you've had experience with that, I would think the complaints would start rising heavily, right? So, when you said you've experienced this, so they rattle the windows, but they don't break, and this is the same level of noise, or
it is. So if we look at the rockets, depending how many engines they have, but one of the heaviest vehicles that I saw, it was a Delta Heavy, and it has like massive, I believe, 9 engines. I can't recall, but it feels like a small earthquake, and it's crazy. But it feels great. I don't know. Like at the island, we have tall buildings with windows. Maybe that might be an issue, but we were in a government facility with no tall buildings.
Well, also obviously the island has very strong windows because it's a hurricane zone, right? So they're all hurricane protected. So I'm sure they're like extra protected. But you said it felt really cool. One of the parts I got there, it felt really good. So how close were you? Oh, you were in.
So I was working in my office. Whenever there was a launch, depending what time it was, we'll just go outside and watch it from a safe zone.
Okay.
And if you're inside the building, you will hear or feel the window shake and everything.
Kind of like a mild earthquake or something?
No,
not that bad. No. That's, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know, like a one, or I also experienced many earthquakes in California. So it's just a loud boom, and the speed of the sound also, depending how far you are, you see first the light and then you start hearing later. But I would see them from outside, so no problem.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we should be able to test. You're thinking even from the launch pad, but maybe not very, very often, like he said, right? Because it may bother everybody if you do it all the time.
I think so, but we will never know until he tries, right?
Yeah. Obviously, they're waiting. And this is where I think why, and I'm assuming as well, like why he would say something like that and very short, is that what everybody has been talking about is obviously there's environmental both organizations and inspections that are happening, right? Environment organizations pressuring, right? And then there is certain inspections that are being done, I think, if I understand that correctly, currently, before they allow him to do this.
Yeah. Is that what I understand? We were still waiting to hear the final saying with the FAA. He did talk about it, that it was going well, but I didn't.
It was a specific, he had an acronym. I don't know what it was called. I don't know what it's called.
But I know it can be difficult to deal with environmental agencies. Also, I dealt with that in my previous job. You have to protect the environment. You have to make sure we're not breaking any rules. And I'm not too concerned that a lot of people here, I see that they're concerned about pollution and rocket fuel, and none of that. It is not bad for us.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know what the final sayings would be.
Well, and I don't know if this is correct, and you might know this, is they've told me that where they launched from Florida is pretty similar to this environment here, right? It's like a very similar environment.
Yes.
So there's not really a difference in the environmental impact, and they're doing it from Florida like all the time, right? Like this is happening.
And especially, I tell people this in Texas, that when I was in California, one of the states that's more environmentalist, like very conservative, you want to make sure, like, if there are some birds, you cannot launch. If there's some, the whale season, you cannot do the launch. There's a lot of things, restrictions, that I don't see those here. Like you said, in Florida, it's very similar environment.
Right.
So hopefully that's a good thing.
How do you feel about it, being like you grew up here and having rockets being, at least let's call it, tested, and now like an R&D center for rockets in your home? Did you ever think that you...
It's crazy. No, I never thought this would happen here. However, it's amazing for me. Obviously, I love space. I work in the space defense industry, but I think it's great for the city. It's great for everything that's happening here, more jobs, education, everything. So
I think it's huge. I hear a lot of negative voices, and that's why kind of I wanted to talk about this specific message that he gave, because the people that I've talked to, that I've told you I've talked to here, and the people that we interviewed at Isla Blanca, we talked to a bunch of people when all this has been happening, and there seems to be a correlation between having, and I don't know if this happened to you, this would be interesting, something happened to these people as kids. They had an experience with space camp or something to do with space, which drew them in, and now they're like hooked on this stuff. Did that ever happen to you? How did you get into this specific field?
I don't know. Like, since I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut, but
really?
Always. And I would ask Santa Claus for telescopes instead of...
Did you know you were Mexican?
Well, I couldn't qualify because I didn't have 20/20 vision. I didn't even speak English. Like, I was still living in Mexico at the time.
Right.
And I'm like, this is not going to happen. But however, I'm still going to work at NASA one day, or, continue what I always wanted.
And when you say what age is this? Do you remember? What age do you remember?
Since I was like 5, 6.
Really?
7, always.
And you don't know why? It was in you?
I just go outside and look at the stars and wanted to know what's over there. Like, that already happened. We're looking at the light that star probably already died or something, and I want to learn more about it.
That's amazing. And so this is important for kids, or what did you study? Like, what did you... Yeah.
I ended up studying in college just business, because again, I didn't know English that well, and going to college for me was a big deal. I went to San Antonio, and it was like learning a new language, and I love numbers and math and engineering. And I was just like, I'm scared learning something else. So I'm like, business is always going to help me. So I'm just going to focus on business. I wanted to study astronomy. And then I said, no, I can just do that as a hobby. So ended up studying marketing and international business. And
at St. Mary's? Or?
Yeah, St. Mary's. Yeah.
Everybody that I know went to St. Mary's studied international business. So I asked.
Business.
Yeah.
But I always had my books in astronomy, telescopes, took lessons, and whenever I can, join astronomy clubs in Los Angeles or whatever.
So then how did you get in? To the field? Like, how did...
Just trying interviewing after college. It was difficult just to get a job at that time. There was a recession, 05, and I wanted just, first of all, get a job right after college, and kept applying everywhere. In Air Force, I was able to get an internship with the Air Force, which they sent me to Air Force Space Command, which is pretty much space and related. We were launching rockets, and it was like my dream internship job. And after the internship, they hired me. I was there. And then after that, I just went straight to NASA because similar work.
So it seems like luck, like you got hired and they put you right where you wanted to be. That's crazy.
I applied for the Air Force, and I didn't know that I was going to be going to California. I was going to stay in San Antonio, any of those Randolph, Lackland Air Force Base. And then they called me and was like, oh, those positions are full. Are you willing to move to California? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's the Space Command, because other Air Force, they support something else, Material Command, weapons, whatever. This one was space. The headquarters are in Colorado. But now they changed the Space Command to the Space Force.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Trump.
Trump changed. Yeah. So now it's the Space Force.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. No problem. But in my resume, it still says I work for the Space Command.
Oh, change it. I'm just kidding. Space Force.
Now the Space Force. But it was great. I saw so many launches there. It was just amazing. And then I did my MBA, my thesis on SpaceX, before they were even they were barely trying to choose the site.
Okay, that's a whole conversation.
Okay, that's something else.
So you did your whole thesis.
Yeah, SpaceX.
For your MBA?
For my MBA in California.
SpaceX as a business? SpaceX as a...
I did my thesis was the whole strategic analysis on SpaceX, and you do everything, or SWOT analysis.
Looking at it as a whole company.
As a whole company.
So all the places they are in the world, all the places...
Well, I was comparing them with the other defense players, like the big ULA or whoever, Boeing, other ones.
Right.
And it was my whole thesis, and I interview people that work at SpaceX. I was able to watch the launch there, one of the first Falcon 9s. And I still have that paper from 2012. And I remember right before graduating from the MBA, they launched their first cargo to the moon. And I was watching. And when I went to my graduation, I told my teacher, I told you they were going to make it. Wow. Give me an A.
Give me an A. So when I remember that it was very vulnerable for a while for SpaceX, right? Obviously, this guy's a genius, and he's trying to do all these things at the same time. And I remember in every company that he has ever started, it's kind of like really wobbly. Now it seems to be solid.
There was a lot. Like he always says, failure. Like you need failure in order to succeed. There were a couple of launches that they didn't succeed, or they lost cargo from NASA.
Right.
Too. And in order to get those contracts to get funded, he needed to prove that they could do it.
Yeah.
And he did it. Now he said he was going to launch 50 probably 50
something
launches
crazy. Yeah.
Next year, which that's like once a week.
Once a week.
Almost.
And that's all Falcons, I imagine. Right? The majority at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? And he's obviously winning all the government contracts that are out there now, right? Like the majority of them at least. He's been able to pull through, and he's made a lot of people believe in this and really strive for it. And it's so interesting to be a part of it, just living here, right? And I didn't know anything. I don't know anything. So it's like, I'm an idiot. But I'm really fascinated. Like, I wasn't like you. I was never into space or there's rockets or stuff. But then, and that's what I think is really cool. You go out there and you look at these things and you're like, holy crap, right? And you see the size, right? And you're like, holy crap. And then you start really feeling like anything is possible. And that's what I think is really important for the kids here, right? Imagine when you were here as a kid and you were thinking all these things, and you could drive to Boca Chica and see a rocket or people building rockets, and then they give you kids tours.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's great. It's very inspirational for the kids. And just anything is possible, like you said. I mean, if I would have seen that when I was a little girl, I would be like, I'm going to work there or whatever. Yeah. Like, it's opportunity. Now I can see it. My dad used to drive me to NASA in Houston.
Yeah.
every time I was in Houston, I was like, take me to NASA, take me to NASA.
Really?
Yes.
At what age, more or less?
8, 9, 10.
Really?
And even in high school, I remember
like, take me
going
to
to
NASA.
Houston. You already been there. I don't care. I want to go again.
And that was the thing that I thought of, because there's all these voices, like I said, that are like for and against, and I think of that. There's a specific statistic, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but like 70% or 60% of the people never leave where they're at. They never travel, right? So if you look at that in the valley, just in the valley, if 60 or 70% of people never take their kids to Houston or San Antonio or anywhere that we've been to, like since we were kids, these kids don't see anything, and at least see a rocket.
Yeah.
And now your dreams are like, well, maybe I can't travel right now, but I know there's this guy building stuff to go to Mars or stuff to go to the moon. I can do anything, right? Mm-hmm. I live here.
Right.
And that's what I'm hoping, right? It's obviously more for the next generations that you grew up here, right? We obviously don't have high-tech jobs. We obviously are not a high-tech place yet. We're hoping to be. But this will develop engineers. This will develop even other stuff that has nothing to do with space. But because you saw this, there's a lot of aspirational careers that can come out of this. And that's what I'm hoping. And you're one of the examples, right? Without rockets, you were able to get a job in NASA, even without studying. That's amazing.
Yeah, because also that's what I always wanted to tell when I go talk to the kids, and I'm like, hey, I'm not an engineer and I'm not a scientist. You can still work at NASA, and there are so many things. We need to run the business, right?
Right.
We need you, or whatever. We need the marketing. We need the PR. We need this. Anything you can do. It not necessarily an engineer. And I always tell that. I work with them every day.
Damn.
I feel like one of them sometimes, but I work on the business side, and I love it.
It's amazing. That reminded me when you said that they put out an ad. I remember there's this girl, and she was making cocktails from the island, and she was a bartender, and she was making she was going to the rockets and making cocktails like a video, right? And has the rocket as a background. And then they put out an ad that they needed a bartender. And she's now their whatever they call them, the people.
Yeah.
I didn't want to mess up. Yes, mixologist. So she's their mixologist now. And it was like, that's what she wanted to do. And it had nothing to do with being an engineer. And I've been lucky enough to go and take pictures of everybody at SpaceX. And I went to this event they had, and I saw all the teams. And what really was impactful to me was that the majority of the employees are not these engineers that everybody talks about, right? These people that came from out of town, the majority are locals, right? The people who are welding, the people who are doing all this stuff, they're locals, and they're doing like jobs you would do at the port or jobs that you would do. And so it's helping in a lot of ways, not just aspirational, as I said. There's actually jobs right now. They're probably high paying compared to other welding jobs. And it's been amazing so far. So I think that the message, at least, that I wanted to talk to you about was how we should take this as a positive, right? That this is happening. I don't know. Like some people, I told you, some people are saying they're leaving in 5 years or whatever. But whatever happens, this now happened, right? We built rockets, right? Brownsville built rockets. I saw it. Nobody could tell me, right? Not only did we build them, and I say we, right? I didn't do it. But we, they tested them in front of us, right? We saw them go up. We saw it land. We went to these things. You should have seen. Did you go to Isla Blanca?
No, I was in California at the time, but I was watching all over.
It was like watching a football game. Like I told Renee that when we were with the crowd at Isla Blanca, and you know how you go to a game and then you hear one side against the other side, but this was everybody together. Even when it exploded, everyone was like cheering, and it was such a positive cheer. And there's people from all over. And I think there's something about exploration of space and dreaming far and bigger than we've ever have that is really positive for our area. And I just hope that, I know there's a lot of environmental issues, and I know that we have to be vigilant and protect our home. But at the same time, I don't want that aspect of this aspirational and important time in history for us to be lost because of these negative, or not negative, but voices that might be very, very cautious, right? And so I'm glad there's people like you out here, and I want to, hopefully you can talk to more people while you're here, more kids. Have you been talking to kids here?
I did for some of the schools. During COVID, they invite me virtually, and again, I just say, hey, I'm not an engineer, but whatever questions about space that I might know, or again, my inspiration was to be an astronaut. I couldn't get there, but I still work where I want to work, and this is so cool. And talk about rockets or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Have you gone? Have they given you a tour?
I've been on my own. No, where here?
Yeah.
No, just on my own. I haven't been really in a tour or anything. Just
you haven't been inside. I mean, I haven't been inside, but I got to go when I went to the thing to take the pictures. I got to go to the lobby. That's as far as I got. But they have the Raptors as decoration in the lobby. It looks amazing. It's like I can imagine the whole facility looks crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully I can go back. I haven't seen it stacked yet, so hopefully I can go. If it's still today, I believe.
Yeah. Stacked. So they're gonna take it back down, I imagine.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, I need to go take pictures as well.
I think they're leaving it for us to go take pictures. And, unless we're ready to test it, but I think they're gonna bring it down.
Yeah, I would think so too. Have you ever met? Did you go to the presentation?
No, I couldn't go, but I saw virtual.
Yeah,
actually.
Have you ever met him?
No.
What do you think of this guy?
He's amazing. I would love to meet him one day. He has great sense of humor. Again, he's very smart. I wrote everything about him. I follow what he does, and I think so. Great.
A big part of your thesis was on him,
Well, I mean,
yeah, he's SpaceX, right?
His company and leadership, and I've been how he started following ever since, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, I don't understand him. Like I've seen long form interviews with him, and one of them with Joe Rogan telling him that he says people think I'm an alien, and I think he might be, but how he does that, right? Because this is what in my head, this is what I figure, right? He did that whole presentation on Thursday. He finishes up, right? Probably, and this is me making up stuff, right? Probably by midnight, he's at the airport, getting on his plane, and now he's got to think about cars, right? And then he's working on cars, and then in the middle of the day, he's like, you know what? I got to think about putting chips into people's brains, right? And then, let's think about the rockets again. And I'm like,
yeah,
I can barely go through a day.
That's what I say, like, because you see his tweets and he's funny, and I think he's very down to earth. You know, the way he dresses, the way he talks to other people. He was wearing his Texas buckle and a T-shirt, and I'm like, how do you do it? Like you said, you don't see him like on vacation and on, doing stuff for him. He's always working. So.
Yeah, he has to, I think. And he's put it on himself, which is strange, to help us idiots out here. Me, not you, but like me, like help us, because this is, and I think I was telling somebody this, but what struck me was he's working on cars, which is really transportation. He's working on Neuralink, which is putting the integration of human with computer. And he's working on spaceships or rockets that are going to go to the moon, to Mars, to all these places. And if you look at those three components and you put them together and you're like, this is kind of the future of humanity, right? Yeah. The future of transportation, the future of how we're going to be integrated with computers, and then interstellar travel, right? So you're like, this guy decided to tackle like the three of the biggest things, doing it very successfully. Like, I guess nobody has been able to do one of them better than him so far, right? He's beating everybody in cars. I don't even think anybody's doing Neuralink except for him. There might be China. I mean, probably.
Yeah.
And then the rockets is crazy. He's beating Bezos. He's beating all the billionaires, right? I think he's ahead of all the billionaires. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And So how, and I know you can't say a lot, but how do you think NASA views him, SpaceX, that type of thing? And you don't have to answer. You can't say that.
Yeah, I'd rather not comment on that.
Yeah.
But all I can say, I mean, whatever's public, that SpaceX was selected, like I believe $2 billion
Yes.
with that rocket to
the moon,
yes. And then there was a protest and all of that. But I just know that because how efficient, and it's not as expensive as the other rockets. Like they're selecting SpaceX more often to launch things. But
and so, do you think, or is there a time frame that you know about for trying to get to the moon? Like, do they have a hard time?
We're supposed to be, I believe, 2024.
That's 2 years away.
Yeah,
but
we were delayed because of all this
Bezos thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did they move that time 2025 or 2026?
I do not know the answer, but I know it was delayed. Artemis, the production or everything was slowed down. But
okay. But there is, that's, moving forward, we're going to the moon.
We are.
Right? And I think China's going to the moon as well, right? Or they're there. Everybody's going.
Wow.
India, I think, wants to go to the moon. Everybody wants to go to the moon now. But I think there's a lot of business, which you probably work on, for space, right? That's going to happen. You know that we have a program, or I think it's called Expanding Frontiers. Have you been in touch with? You know what they're doing?
No, not yet.
Yeah. So there's Expanding Frontiers. I don't know a lot. I'll tell you what I know is that they have a program where they're helping entrepreneurs that want to get involved in space, and they are leveraging or licensing NASA technology to like help entrepreneurs come up with businesses that just help the community as a whole. But that's happening now here because of SpaceX. They started that at the airport, and it's amazing. I went to the first. They do like a Shark Tank type thing with entrepreneurs, and I went to the first one. It's pretty cool. I mean, they're getting local entrepreneurs involved in space.
That's great.
Yeah. I'll see if I can get, because you're probably perfect for them to at least talk to,
Thanks. Yeah, I would like to go and see.
Yeah, I know several of the entrepreneurs and that participated where I went. And it was really, really cool to see at least that that's one of the positive things is that more businesses are going to start coming because of SpaceX, and more businesses will probably be started here because of SpaceX. There's another guy I met there. He's an engineer and he quit SpaceX and he's building, I guess, constructions like domes and stuff that you would take to Mars now. He started a business here. He quit that SpaceX to start that business and build the stuff that you would take to Mars to like have assembly construction or whatever they're going to do. I don't know what you call it. But that, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff, right? And there's the guy with the car that flies. Have you seen that guy at the airport? Yeah. Yeah, there's a guy. Aren't you from Brownsville? I'm still. But there's a guy that is doing kind of the drone, but the one you can fly yourself. And they're trying to build it here at the airport as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. So I'm glad you're here. You don't know how long you're here?
Not yet, because we're still working from home.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you don't know.
I want to be here for Charo Days and all that stuff. I think we're gradually going to start going back to the office, but we don't know when yet.
You don't know when yet?
No, it's been 2 years working from home.
I want to hopefully have you again so we can talk more technical, because I know nothing. And in that part,
I don't know much either. I'm not the engineer.
But you know more because you're there. I mean, than I would know. And I think that it's also important that people see your point of view as being from Brownsville. And it's a great perspective for the community, for kids, for everybody, to have somebody like you. And I don't even know people know you exist. Like the majority that there's I was going to say a girl, but that there's somebody from here that went to NASA, and is working there now in this that's going on here, So thank you very much, Nancy, for coming. We will have you again, hopefully before they call you back.
Sure.
Maybe let's do it right after Charo Days to see if we get to see Elon and see what's going on.
Great.
Yeah, we're going to try to catch him. We just had the Charo Days people here. So we're hoping to like catch him on film or catch him with people. Maybe we can meet him.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That would be great.